Well, the defiance of Daniel Andrews continues. Remember, he said the virus which caused the lockdown was moving, quote, at a velocity that has not been seen anywhere in our country over the course of the last 12 months. Yes, such a velocity that since the ridiculous announcement of the lockdown, which paralysed the whole state, there have been a handful of cases, in spite of thousands and thousands and thousands of expensive tests. And note how he still doesn't tell us that in Australia today, 100% of the cases are mild, fewer people in hospital in their state, 12. No one in intensive care. But nonetheless, the lockdown is over, but dictator Dan has to pretend that he was right all along. So you can exercise, travel and shop. He wants you to keep wearing masks from midnight tonight to Friday next week, my Victorian friends. You can only have 5 visitors to your home. You can only have 20 people gathering in public. And schools will be allowed to, except at the tennis, schools will be allowed to open. And wink, wink, nudge, nudge, it's a case-by-case basis. Check with your child's individual school. See? Get back to school to learn. That should be the message. Which Andrews has buggered up for the last 12 months. So there's a lockdown still of sorts, and Andrews has threatened there may be further lockdowns. How the hell anyone can plan anything in this environment, I don't know. No one knows how many can go to the tennis, but you can go. No one knows how many are allowed at your workplace. And for entertainment, there are, quote, density quotas. This is, by any reckoning, insufferable stuff. The response last night to Adam Crichton was instructive. He talked about the ongoing obsession with COVID-19 and our medieval responses to it, and he cited a research paper of 3 German and Spanish economists, which said in part of Western governments, quote, they've instilled fear in the general public to achieve political goals. As Adam Crichton said to me, quote, Australia and New Zealand have incurred costs equivalent to a world war and more than that of any other nation, fighting a pandemic that has killed not even 1,000 people with a median age in the mid-80s, unquote. And, of course, each day, thousands flock to be tested. Since Sunday, 75,000. And Andrew says he's proud of that. As Adam said last night, I'm sure to your cheering, I'm embarrassed that so many people, the bulk of them healthy, waste hours and the $100 it costs taxpayers for each of the 13.7 million tests carried out so far. And in all this alarmism, fear and sabotage by governments of the economy, there are businesses out there that are suffering. I spoke yesterday about Swan Hill, the little community which hosts one of the biggest tennis tournaments in the world. Preparations take months. They're miles from Melbourne. Dictator Dan pulled the rug from underneath them, millions of dollars lost. I feel guilty that I haven't done anything about the bus industry. People have been made afraid to catch a bus or get in a lift or catch a train. Bus proprietors can't survive. I'll come to you, rest assured. Travel agents, billions and billions of dollars in cancelled bookings. You want to fly from Sydney to Brisbane, you don't have to use a travel agent. Fly to London, you do, but you can't leave the country. There are about 7,000 travel agents in this country. They can't survive. They're mums and dads. They're us. They're families. When COVID hit last March, $10 billion of bookings were cancelled. Billions in refunds had to be provided. Then you've got tour operators. How do they manage? They provide the travel agents with the product that we buy. Then there are cruise lines. And how long can aviation companies survive with international travel a no-no? So let's go first tonight to Margy Osmond, the Chief Executive of the Tourism and Transport Forum. And she joins us, Margy. Thank you for your time. How bad is the travel agent situation?
Oh, look, I think the situation across the board for the whole travel industry is devastating. It's a tragic situation. And as you rightly point out, specifically in the case of the travel agents, they're sort of the middlemen in terms of a lot of travel bookings. So many parts of the industry, many sectors are reliant on them. And I think many travellers feel a sense of certainty when they can use a travel agent. Well, all of that's going to be a changed face of the industry, especially if we don't get some sort of extension of what looks like JobKeeper after the end of March.
Margy, can they survive on local business? I mean, this is so sad. Everyone talks about the economy recovering and so on. I mean, these people employ 40,000 Australians, 29,000 are women, 60% in the cities. They deal with coronavirus, the cancellation. I mean, can they survive?
I think, you know, to be honest with you, travel agents are in a very, very difficult place and they will struggle. I mean, across the industry, over the course of last year, Alan, we lost 1,000 aggregated full-time positions. And between April and September this year, if there is no ongoing support, we'll lose another 318,000 jobs. Now, what that means is the industry will be less than a third of its size by the end of this year. That's not retrievable.
It's not retrievable. I saw figures today that international and domestic tourism had lost $81 billion. 81 B for billion in 1 year, Margy. I mean, OK, places like Byron Bay and New South Wales have done well, but that's not a reflection of what's happening across the country. I'm hearing from far north Queensland. They've had the bulk of their revenue from international tourists. 70% of their market, it's gone.
Correct. Absolutely correct, Alan. And when you use that 81 billion figure, that comes from a 12-month period of which 5 months were COVID-free. So when you actually see the 12-month figure that'll be reported at the end of March, it's going to be much worse. We know across the country that probably 1 in 5 tourism businesses will fail before the end of the year, and that's the average figure. If you're actually looking at far north Queensland, it could be as many as 3 in 5. Yeah, I mean, this is terminal, Alan. This is, absolutely. Do you want a tourism industry or not?
That's it. Well, that's why I'm talking to you, Margy. There has to be a recovery plan here. I've got to tell you, Josh Frydenberg, Scott Morrison, this is diabolical stuff. Margy, thank you for your time, because I'm joined by Dennis Bunnik, who's the chairman of the Council of Australian Tour Operators and the joint CEO of the Adelaide-based Bunnik Tours. Dennis, just on what Margy was saying, would a HEX-style loan assist some of these businesses? I mean, I argued this should have happened during drought, so firms could borrow money from the government to be repaid once turnover returns to a predetermined level. Would that help?
Definitely. We need a bridge to get us through that cash flow gap until when we can start earning money again. The travel industry and tour operators and wholesalers, travel agents, don't make any income until the person actually travels.
That's it.
So for us, we're a year into this crisis and we have at least another year to go before we see any income at all.
See, people like politicians and the Reserve Bank, I mean, they're talking about the economy bouncing back. The Governor of the Reserve Bank, Dr Philip Lowe, makes speeches saying the economic downturn was not as deep as initially feared. The bounce back is stronger. There's a strong pickup. What do people like you think when you hear those comments?
Look, the Borders policy has ensured that we're pretty much COVID-free, and the economy, the broader economy, has recovered nicely. We keep hearing that all the time. Unfortunately, the travel and the tourism industry is the sacrificial lamb that's allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
Now, you can't withdraw support halfway through that, because there won't be a travel and tourism industry like.
No, but I mean, 11 million Australians travel overseas, Dennis. You're no longer allowed to do it. 11 million.
Yeah.
$8,000 was the average spend by Australian holidaymakers. I mean, it's all gone.
Yeah, Australians travel further and longer than anybody else in the world. Now, the people keeping them safe during a crisis and during normal time and during COVID, in the beginning of COVID, we saw the travel industry rally like it had never rallied before to bring Australians home. So once this is over, we need those skilled jobs who've left the industry in droves in the last 11 months. We can't afford to lose any more of those skilled jobs, because if we do, then how are we going to travel safely coming out the other side?
Dennis, just before we go, come March 28, you'll have no income. What happens come March 28? JobKeeper goes.
Look, the anxiety is real. There are travel and tour operators around the country, and we've all got plans, you know, A, B, C and D, and all of our staff are waiting with much nervousness to see what the government is going to do. You can't make our business illegal and then not support us.
No, I mean,
we need ongoing support in terms of loans.
This coma was imposed by government. I mean, the emotional and psychological stress, that's why I'm talking to you, is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Government put business into this economic coma, and there's no relief in sight. Dennis, we'll keep in touch with you. I'm just wondering to those people out there who in Canberra is listening. But if you listening to us are in the industry, I want to hear your story. Margy and Dennis, we thank you for those insights. But Alan at Sky News, you can tell your story to me, alan@skynews.com.au. Or the text line is 0414 000 848.